Hey everyone, let's take a look at two new LEGO Marvel superhero sets based on the upcoming 2020 Marvel Avengers game. The stuff on the left over here is one single set that is called the Avengers Truck Takedown, and all the stuff over on the right is from a set called Avengers Speeder Bike Attack. Speeder Bike Attack comes with Thor, Black Panther, and one single AIM agent with this huge flight suit on and all kinds of weapons. The main build, the bike itself, is intended in this particular case to be used by Black Panther, though of course you can put any normal figure into the rider's seat. The rider kind of sits in a prone position that actually doesn't look too bad. He's kind of covered up towards the back, has a couple of handles sticking up that are intended to represent control sticks or the equivalent of handlebars. A figure is not able to actually grab onto those, but I think that the overall position looks pretty respectable. Got a single sticker here, single sticker back here. This uses a lot of fairly new pieces to the LEGO part inventory, not new to this year, but they have a couple of packs of detailed parts that represent weapon pieces and things. So you can see around these exhausts back here. Oops, just knocked off one of the things you can shoot from the stud shooters on the side. That has a warhead on the top of it. You got this kind of fan element on the top for cooling. So yeah, these are just not spring-loaded shooters, but stud shooters, one on either side. You can angle that up or down, and then you can drive this along and then fire those off as you want once you have them aimed properly. There's another interesting piece from that same part pack underneath here, and these wheels are actually new for 2020 as far as I can tell. They're slightly inspired by an older design from LEGO, but it's just something different. Notice that they are wider than the tires, and I find them to be interesting myself because they're generic enough to be used with other themes and as other things. You got some weight for this bike down below, so it doesn't just leave a huge hollow space underneath. The wide width of the tires means you can always have this standing up. You can also lean it over, and it will just stay like that, which is a pretty good looking, pose for the whole thing. And there's what it looks like from the back. This AIM agent's jetpack, flight suit, whatever you want to call it, uses a bunch more pieces from those special part packs once again. You got like saws, circular saws out here, and they're actually on individual little pivots, so you can bring that up and down. The fans up here that are used as lift fans and for propulsion are on ball joints connected ultimately to the figure, so they can be brought in fairly close. If you want to make it tighter like that, you can bring it all the way out. You can make it look like he's going into a turn. You can make it very dynamic, and it's not too flimsy the way it's set up. I don't particularly like how these things down here are set up. They can fall off on occasion. Yeah, it's just not the best connection if you're going to be doing some real play with this. But for display, it's definitely not a problem. This has stud shooters as well that are set up with more of a different style of warhead. These are like grenades almost, but they're put in with a couple of other studs, one hollow, one not, and yeah, ultimately, you just do like that and it shoots off, because anything that's attached to a stud can be fired from a stud shooter. And then he's also got these custom weapons here in the hands. That one looks pretty good with a couple of specialized pieces. Looks like an SMG. And then over here is a grappling gun. Fires this off with that larger grappling hook end on it. And that's pretty much how this one is set up. So that's the other big build in this small set. This version of Thor, I think, probably looks a little bit more like a MCU version of Thor than the Thor that's actually in the game, just in my opinion. I think the use of the full tan color for the hair is maybe a bit too light and definitely doesn't go with the color of the facial hair. Also have just a slight little production error with one of the eyes on this one. The print on the torso, though, I think is pretty good and pretty accurate. Of course, it comes with Mjolnir. He is still worthy at this point completely, and he can fire off some lightning bolts and things. It's just a little, I forget what you call these power blast pieces. Those actually work pretty well, don't do any damage to the hands when they are used. They come with two of those in this particular set. There's what the print looks like on the back of the torso, so lots of gunmetal gray used here, and it works out pretty well. I do think the printing is accurate to what's in the game, and there's his alternate face. Black Panther looks pretty cool with the collar. Maybe the collar is a little bit on the large side, but it looks much better than leaving it off, in my opinion, as they did with the MCU sets for the most part. And yeah, otherwise, fairly simple, straightforward color scheme, which totally makes sense. A good amount of detail for the chest printing, the torso printing there. It's a little bit subtle in the face, which totally works for me. And there's a print around the back of the torso, which again, has some subtlety to it. I guess it's not that complex, but feels like there's some depth in there depending upon how the light hits it. Nice use of some different types of paint or ink applications. There's no print on the back of this headpiece though. And then here's what the AIM agent looks like with all the flight suit and everything removed. I will also take a little bit more off so you can see more of the printing for the head as well. Again, lots of gunmetal gray. They're really doubling down on that color. This year, it's got AIM printed on the front. And, everything I think fits together pretty well. The print quality is decent. The color scheme is fairly bright and contrasty. And there's what it looks like with everything removed from the head. So there's nothing else to see around the back of this, but just wanted to make sure you saw all the print on the face. Set also includes these 2 canisters of some dangerous, hazardous material that the AIM agent is supposedly trying to grab with his grappling hook and gun, so you can actually grab these by their handles. I don't yet know what material that is actually supposed to be, but at the very least, you can use your imagination until the official information comes out. And once it comes out, or if it already is out and I just haven't seen it in the preview materials, well, then you can still use your imagination if you want to. They also have additional shots for all the different stud-based shooters that they have in the set, so you don't run out of ammo too quickly. And as I said, 1 extra power blast piece for Thor. And finally, here are the true leftover spare pieces, which include a couple of cool specialized parts for minifigs. Avengers Truck Takedown is a vehicle versus vehicle set with a bit of a twist on both sides of the equation. They have some force multipliers. This AIM trike is at its core just a personal transport, little one-man chariot with a funny big wheel and tire. You notice that is again the brand new wheel piece with an existing tire part. I think it looks kind of funny, but it is a launching platform for this drone, which has a really nice build to it. Very believable. That's a trans dark brown or trans black piece here on the front with a single sticker on it. They use these lantern cover cage pieces in an interesting way to show major thrusters in the back. I'm assuming these are supposed to be thrusters as well for reaction control on this, but then this is armed. So, this just rides along and doesn't have any firepower on it directly unless the rider is holding onto his personal weapon. But then this can fly up and be providing overwatch for it at all times. So that makes it interesting. And this is probably more agile, being able to go in all 3 dimensions and everything. So it presents an interesting tactical challenge, I think, that just, makes this set less one-sided. You consider it's just a tricycle, going up against an Avengers big truck with all sorts of weapons, as I'll show you in a minute. This trike itself is not that interesting, but I think you bring this into the picture and it becomes interesting. They've got just the single holder on the back for a personal weapon with a scope or sight for the AIM agent who otherwise has nothing special on him. The Avengers truck is primarily an 8-stud wide build with some small extensions beyond that. It looks to me kind of like a tactical garbage truck or something. It's kind of weird, kind of funky in its design, but it has a lot to it. Obviously, these are shooters up here. You have to use your imagination. They don't actually fire anything off, but they've used a bunch of blast and splat parts in the orange color there. These can be like robot arms. That's part of what looks like a garbage truck to me, like part of the hydraulic thing that comes out on the front to pick up a garbage bin. But then inside there's a lot more, because you can just push down on this single little actuator here in the back, and that happens. It's very easy. Opens up the entire back. You can still use these, using your imagination, to be firing with. And then this comes up and out and also spreads apart. This becomes like a energy crossbow or ballista, and it has a 6-stud shooter there. You can man this by putting a figure right there in that seat. It's not on a turret, so it won't turn from side to side. You have to rotate the whole truck. But I think this is a fairly effective thing. It makes sense that you have a bunch of firepower within this that before you didn't see, and it's very easy to deploy it. It's also easy to put it back, fortunately. The only thing that's not easy and convenient about that is reloading the stud shooter, the 6 stud shooter. This also has a couple of clips inside to hold on to some additional minifig accessories. So that's just a walkie-talkie radio unit. Here's just a very simple sidearm blaster, and a figure can sit in there while this is all closed up at all times. So you can carry a total of 2 people in here. One is a passenger. The other is going to be the driver, who's just going to sit there in the center front seat. Maybe you could actually put an additional figure behind there as well. You'd have to pull this up and then kind of balance them in, but I think that will work looking at it now. But certainly the one in the front has plenty of space. No matter what the person is holding, there's plenty of space to the sides and behind. And that's pretty much it for this one. The license plate ultimately renders down to Nabi, Nabii is what that represents, which is the online alias of Lego designer Mark Stafford. Nice little reference. They like to use that ability to change license plates, and I think it makes total sense right there. And that's pretty much it for this one. You can bring these arms out as well. Should have mentioned that. So they can rotate out to the sides if you want to use that to, just imagine it's going to grab onto something from the side, or maybe try to catch a drone, an AIM drone when it comes down flying a little bit too close. Or maybe you could put weapons in the hands of that if you want to. Perhaps there are also little windows on the side there. Again, a little bit awkward, but it is what it is. The AIM agent who is not riding the tricycle is able to be airborne just like the tricycle's drone. So you have dual aerial attack against a single land target, or ground-based target. And this has all sorts of weapons. I mean, that blaster, whatever it's supposed to be, appears to have dual barrels on it. And then he's got his pack on the back, which is interesting, a different way to do a jet or rocket pack. And it's using a couple of the blast pieces, again in that same orange color. And you can rotate these back. Let's see. I thought you could do it a little bit more than that, maybe at a different angle. There we go. If you bring them in closer or farther apart, then you can bring them down like this, just as you wish. You can also rotate these off to the sides to get different looks, So you can have different angles for these, which I think, allows some additional options for play and display both. And then the AIM agent beneath ultimately is the exact same figure, with all this other stuff taken off. It's the exact same figure. Sorry about that. There we go, as the one that we saw previously. So it's one of these again, and we already saw what it looks like underneath with the first set. These are all identical at their base. The set comes with a new version of Hawkeye. I think this one's looking pretty cool. If you leave the MCU Hawkeye out of your mind, at least in my opinion, that character was underused and not particularly powerful in that series. If you look at this as something fresh, a different take, then easily just from looking at this guy, he looks like he has a lot of confidence and he could probably do a lot of damage on the battlefield. Like I trust this guy a little bit more as an Avengers Hawkeye than the MCU version to save me, the world, a city, or whatever. Maybe I'm reading a little bit too much into the graphic design here. It's just kind of the impression that I get from looking at this one. Ultimately, I like this better than the figures that they've made for the MCU previously. And then here's the new game version of Chris Evans as Captain America. And here, instead of trying to print on a dark blue colored head, they just went with the regular light flesh colored head, which doesn't give you the full coverage around the side, but it allows the face to be printed with consistency and with sense. They've had problems with some of them being printed too dark, some of them being printed way too pale, and I feel like this is just a much better compromise. It's difficult to see the print on that torso. It's actually pretty good. I think it really does a good job of matching the suit that they've put him in for the game, and some of the stuff that I think has been shown in comics as well. Ultimately, I think this is just, again, a well-done figure, better than figures that Lego did for the MCU, content that they've covered in the past. I guess the print on the shield is not as good as it could be, but it's not bad. And then taking this off, there's one of his faces. And then here's the one that we saw just a second ago. And this set also comes with, thankfully, a hairpiece for him. Bonus! Love when they do that. Hope they will continue to do that. And I will continue to sing the praises of LEGO for doing that, because they should always do it. It costs them, if even a penny, to include that. And it just offers us, fans, kids of all ages, more options for how to play or display our figures, and lets us do more and have more different scenarios. Like this can be the office version of him, the not fighting version of him, which is great and useful. And then finally, the spare pieces for this set obviously are dominated by extra studs for all the different stud shooters. This set retails for $40 US for almost 480 pieces. I think that's okay. This does have a lot of studs, like literally just stud pieces in it, and other 1x1 plate and tile type pieces in it. So, the price to part ratio is a little bit skewed there. I think for the amount of stuff that you get here, the value is, it's okay. It's really not particularly good. I wouldn't mind seeing this go for $35. Actually, I would feel a lot better with a $35 price point for this. I could even imagine it being $30, but then looking at the complexity of it, I can understand why it's definitely not $30. So as far as I'm concerned, $40 is not terrible, but not great. I'd love to see this at $35. So if you can get it at a small discount, then you're probably golden if you like what you see. The bike set is $20, and I feel like this would be a respectable deal if only they had included one additional aim agent. I feel like that's what's missing here. Even if it was just a pretty plain one with no special stuff, just give him a blaster or something. Some sort of single one-handed weapon, nothing too fancy or built up. I think that would have made this a decent deal for the amount of stuff that you get here. It kind of makes sense. Some of the bikes that LEGO makes that are oversized like this sometimes are a little bit lacking in substance. They create a large size, but then there's a huge hollow space inside, and they don't really play all that well, and they don't even look that good. I actually feel like this bike turned out quite well and is very worth it for the part budget that went into it. And I also think that this whole flight suit, whatever you want to call that, for the aim agent is fantastic, with all the ways that you can pose it and all the specialized pieces that are included in the set in general to allow some of its building features. So I think what is here is good. I think all the figures are pretty good. I don't know if that's the right hair color for that version of Thor, just based on what I've seen in gameplay footage so far. Definitely could have used one additional aim agent. So this is another one where I would love to see a small discount. If you can get this at like $15 to $17, even $17.99, it's just a little off would help, I think, and would put it more into a correct value and price range. Summing up my overall personal opinions about these sets, I think that they're both a bit better than I was expecting them to be after looking at the initial photos, the initial pictures that were released. Especially for this thing here, I just thought it looked so extremely toyish. Now, keep in mind, this is a 7+ set. It's not like it's made for 12+ or something, or teens. This is a 6+ set, and I think that they're both rather advanced in their construction techniques and the parts that are included for those age ranges. And this thing in particular looks a little bit better in person than I thought it would, but what I like least about it definitely remains the choice of wheels and tires and the fact that they're sticking out so far. I feel like if those were tucked in a bit more, it would look a lot more believable. Or if there was something down underneath here, just this space down here is a little bit weird. The stuff up top, it's supposed to look kind of futuristic, mil-tac, kind of paramilitary, a tough truck. And a lot of it, I think, is pretty successful design. The main play feature of this works great. It's just so easy. And it totally makes sense. This is exactly, I think, what kids want. They want to be able to transform this thing quickly. I want to be playing with it. I don't want to have to sit there and remember, okay, what I need to go through this step and then this step. Just on the back, it's not a huge knob that's sticking out that's red with an arrow on it, or saying push here, do this. It's just a little thing sticking out the back. You push it and it's dramatic what happens. It helps these to be even more visible and interesting looking, the shooters on the sides. And then you just pull this up and you can immediately use it. You can have a person already in there. If you want, then you can bring these two things out. That's cool. If you want, you don't need to do that. And while this is up, you can also use this as additional space inside. You can fight in there. You can have some strategization going on or something. So this overall, I feel, is pretty good. This is lacking in its base, right? This itself is lacking. This is somewhat childish. Again, keep in mind, yeah, it's for 7+, but it's more childish than I personally would like to see for this. And I am a bit biased in that, being an adult and all. But this really helps so much. That thing is super cool, well detailed, well built, makes sense. You can shoot from it, and it just looks good. Even if you're not a kid, still I think that looks good. It's something that's respectable. The number of figures for that set is good. And yeah, I already talked about this, so I don't need to go over that anymore. Overall, a pretty good thing. And this as well, probably a bit bigger in the hand than I expected it to be, and not too unwieldy. These things underneath could be a little bit better, but otherwise, overall, 2 respectable sets. I just wish they were a little bit cheaper, but they're not bad. If you'd like to see the builds, I have built both of these sets in a single speed build video back to back. That video is up live on my JANG Builds It Speed Builds channel right now, and it's also live on my real-time Pure Builds channel. The Pure Builds channel is aimed a little bit more at the ASMR crowd and folks who just want to put some content on in the background. It has really good high quality sound of just the Lego pieces going together. And if you are over the age of 13, you can still comment over there. That one has not been marked by the changes to YouTube for 2020, and I don't believe it needs to be changed. So if you are over 13, you can still comment about either of these sets over there. Thank you very much for watching this video, though. Hope you enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you again soon.